And good evening, welcome back to your view. Thanks to Monsieur Gumede there for the news update. Once again, thanks to Bongiwe Zwane and Tula Sizwe Simelane as well as Thabo Mdluli for standing in. If you want the dose of them tomorrow night, we're having a round table together with the CIC of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius Malema, and Thabo Mdluli and Bongiwe Zwane will be joining me in that round table. It's a marathon interview from 9:30 to 11 o'clock with the CIC of the Economic Freedom Fighters. And I was also saying a little earlier, we will also talk to the SABC CEO on Wednesday night. And that's what I want to talk about. You know, the SABC in a total mess, man. And what's interesting is the Treasury has been, in fact, refusing to give them money to bail them out, despite all the good work that I think that board has done. But let's take a look at the insert here by Ati Mtongana in Cape Town about the SABC.
For years, the SABC has been begging government for money. The public broadcaster's financial woes have continued to escalate over the years, and it now owes creditors 1.8 billion rand. This year, Parliament approved the appropriations bill, which will see several state-owned entities receive money from National Treasury. Preconditions have been set out for the entities to meet before receiving the money, something the SABC has been struggling with since the bailout announcement by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni this year.
The department is working on this. We have now, as the Deputy Minister was saying earlier, we're working on the preconditions for the bailout, and these would really help to ensure that we deal with all of the legacy issues as well as the debts that the organization has.
The SABC has been told, amongst other things, to compile a list of non-core assets that would be sold and make appointments in critical posts. The public broadcaster says it has now at least identified over 100 critical positions that need to be filled and is advertising some of them. The public broadcaster told members of the NCOP's Select Committee on Public Enterprises and Communications that for the 2018-2019 financial year, it ended with a cash flow of only 72 million rand in the bank. The public broadcaster says it's working on meeting the requirements from National Treasury and has also worked on other revenue enhancement mechanisms.
It was important for us to get different revenue streams, particularly in this very tough economic environment. And I'm pleased to announce that there's been a lot of traction and we've seen positive green shoots in this regard. And GTEC has acknowledged the work that has been done.
Its depleted cash flow has also affected its inability to broadcast Premier Soccer League games. The Select Committee was told by the SABC that there's an agreement reached with PSL and SuperSport and will soon be meeting with SAFA. The estimated 3.2 billion rand bailout money is expected to be injected into the public broadcaster's bank account in phases. A much-needed lifeline that would save the SABC from a looming black-on-air crisis, paying salaries to its employees, save jobs, and work on its ailing infrastructure. For Newsroom Africa on Channel 405, I'm Atim Tongana in Parliament.
All right, that's Atim Tongana there. By the way, she did a fantastic interview there earlier on today with the Speaker of Parliament, and well done to Atim Tongana there, monitoring things for us in the mother city. But, you know, it's quite clear to me that the SABC's board, which in fact has been one of the most erudite, independent, and just purely competent boards we have ever had in the litany of horrendous boards that have been manipulated, that have been, you know, spineless, that have wrecked the place and made it bankrupt. But this board has really shown its mettle. You've seen with the kind of reports that have been, released or commissioned by them. One of the reports that have been swept under the carpet for many, many years is the whole issue of sexual harassment at the SABC. as well as the issue of editorial independence. Both those two things, or their absence in regards to the editorial independence, have destroyed the place. We had a situation where Saudi would tell journalists to report 70% good news. I mean, total rubbish. In the issues of journalism. I mean, how do you get to a quota of 70%? And then you had the ANC there, led by Zizi, and Zizi doesn't like it when I remind him about it. Who said that the ANC must get, coverage equal to its parliamentary presence of 60%? I mean, it's nonsense, And they had to listen to this rubbish. And of course, the report coming out saying that the newsroom has always had this spectre of the ANC hovering over it, which is a polite way of saying that there was bloody interference. But people are still afraid to say. So-and-so actually called me and wanted to tell me how to report, and so on. And so these things always come out in the press, because when Mbalula, for example, was a campaign manager, they went there to have a meeting of the ANC, which could be described as nothing but intimidation to the newsroom. And we saw when they were releasing this report on editorial interference that the head of news there was short of just saying, just leave us to do our work so that we have a credible broadcast. Okay, now you've got an independent boss, and I must say that the board under the leadership of Bongo Musa Makatini simply standing its ground and not allowing interference by politicians. See, they were lucky that, in fact, on the day that board was announced, almost 2 years ago now, right, the court pronounced that the SABC has to take full responsibility to appointing its executives. And that government and the shareholder ministry must stay out of it. And they must stop with their nonsense of interfering and wanting to impose their own cadres there who have no idea what they're supposed to do in running the place. They were lucky in that regard, but in fact they followed through and appointed some good people there to run. And one of them, the CEO there, will be Mr. Badota, will come in to join us on Wednesday to try to just make us understand what kind of progress has been made there. But going back to the issue of bailout of treasury, it's surprising. Some of the organizations that have gotten, bailouts from treasury are in a mess. They're in a worse state than the SABC will ever be in the next 10 years. But the check was hurriedly signed, because maybe those boards that are in those entities, they are politically connected and so on. They can pick up a phone and ring the president and so on. Whereas this board was made to wait there at the presidential guest house there. Were made to wait outside, like school kids waiting outside the principal's office on a bench. Could not even get audience with the president up to now. It's shocking. The Minister of Communications came here with paraffin speed here when she was appointed there, rushing there, causing chaos, causing half of that board to resign. I saw that board, most of them interim board, who had held the press conference just 2 or 3 weeks ago saying they don't like some of the report that came out of the SIU and what have you and so on. But they were made to flee. They were made to flee. Credible people like Matata Tsedu and Ausi Kanyukwedama were made to flee the place because nobody would fund it. How do you want this? They wanted to fund it from their own pockets, or I don't understand. But it's all chaos, and the Treasury has to be consistent in ensuring that a broadcaster like the SABC that actually serves so many South Africans every day with news and current affairs and information and entertainment should not go down. And then, of course, they're saying, now they're going to give them in trenches and bits and pieces so that they avoid an on-air blackout. I think, in fact, the journalists there must take a stance. The same way that the journalists before, who were called the SABC, took a stand against the chaos of Claudi. I think the journalists must take a stand now against the chaotic behavior of the Minister of Communications and her counterpart at Treasury, who are dilly-dallying and using the Treasury's money and ability and responsibility to actually save the SABC, using it as a little piggyback and behaving as if this is their money, right? And these are the same people who turn a blind eye when money is being wasted all over the place with municipalities squandering this money and so on. But when they have to take this money and make sure that a public broadcaster can continue to do his job, they don't do it. They run around, they come with silly things that are in fact only a punishment for that board, hoping that board will resign before the local government elections. I have news for you, that board is not about to resign. You're going to have to give them money. Talking about treasury, interesting paper that has come out of Tito Mbowene's office. And in fact, Tito Mboweni has done exactly what other ministers of finance have done. I don't know why people are surprised and are excited. I mean, the SACP, for example, coming out, guns blazing. Let's take a listen at what Dr. Mashilo had to say in response to the Treasury document.
When we were at the meeting, the bilateral meeting with the ANC, the president was there. And the president opened the meeting to highlight key issues facing the country. That meeting took decisions and put in place a process. What Mboweni did is outside of that process. COSATU is an integral part of this alliance, and insofar as together we agree about the reconfiguration of this alliance is the strategic political center in relation to things that must unfold in government. I don't know which center did Tito Mboweni consult, because we have not been consulted as the alliance. And we have taken serious note that immediately when the document was released, almost within hours, the DA welcomed that particular document. Something somewhere should have happened, because in our case, this meant that we had to download the document and read it and analyze it. Something somewhere may have been taking place with the strategic political center of the National Democratic Revolution unaware.
What is this something, Alex? You've got me lost there. What are you suggesting?
Why would an opposition party within minutes of the release of a document welcome it? When did they study the document? When did they examine it? Look at what the DA did when the National Health Insurance was released, where we were consulted. They rejected it. The alliance was pushing for the implementation of the National Health Insurance.
Maybe they are fast readers.
Oh man, the SACP is quite interesting, I tell you, I don't have enough time now, but there's going to be part 2. Tomorrow, I want to talk about this. And there's this tendency that says, yeah, you see, if white people agree with you, you must know there's something wrong with you. Now they're saying, if the DA agrees with it, then clearly there's something wrong. And of course, the SACP, in its mind alone, the alliance is a strategic center. The alliance is dead. It's dead long ago. Kalama Tante told us long ago, and he was told, no, he's drinking cold tea because he's out of power. But the alliance is dead, and this document, the release of this document without their input, is a clear indication that it is dead in the water. The sooner the communists do some dialectical analysis about it, the better. But in any event, Tito cannot fold his arms and wait for a mass meeting and an alliance that will be reconfigured in the year 2030 before he can release some document that's going to save this economy. But part 2 coming up tomorrow, where we look at that document in detail and ask the question, was Tito smoking his socks? Or in fact, was he on board or on par? Or is he in the money? As they say, Tito Mboweni, let's take a break now.